My mother always wanted a son. As far as I know, there were at least 3 other girls. In the end, none of them became part of our family, and I was the daughter who stayed. For years, there was one thing I couldn't understand. My mother is a woman too, so why didn't she want girls? Later, I realized if I wanted to understand my mother, maybe I had to start with her mother, my grandmother. My grandmother had 4 daughters. My mother was the youngest. She used to tell me proudly that when she and her 3 sisters were younger, people in the village called them the 4 golden flowers. But unfortunately, not one of the 4 was a boy. Because he had no son, my grandfather felt ashamed in the village, and because my grandmother couldn't give him a son, people talked about her or her life. My grandfather blamed her too. She always felt that neighbors who had sons could look down on her and push her around. So these 4 girls grew up learning the same things. A woman must have a son for her life to be complete. A family needs a man, so no one can push them around. And when a daughter gets married, she needs a younger brother back home, someone who can protect her and stand up for her. Eventually, the 4 golden flowers grew up. The first to get married was my mother's eldest sister, my eldest aunt. Her husband came from a poor family with many brothers. Later, he married my eldest aunt and joined her family. To my mother and her sister, this was something to be proud of, because this family, a family without a son, finally had one. In a way, they believed that from now on, no one would dare push them around anymore. My grandmother's second daughter was my second aunt. She first had a daughter. Later, she had a boy, Han Han, my cousin. I used to think my grandfather just didn't like a child. He rarely spoke, and he smoked a lot. When I was little, I often stayed at my grandmother's house, but my grandfather and I barely spoke to each other. What I remember most is Han gave me money and asked me to go buy him a pack of cigarettes. Until Han Han was born, that's when I realized my grandfather could smile. He would hold Han Han, play with him, talk to him. He even slept beside him. I was jealous of Han Han. Sometimes I would go up to my grandfather too. I wanted to see if he would hold me the way he held Han Han, if he would play with me too, but he ignored me. At the time, I thought maybe it wasn't that Grandpa didn't like me. Maybe boys just liked to play with boys more. Later, I told my grandmother and my mother, Grandpa loves Han Han the most. He doesn't like me, so I don't like Grandpa either. They all laughed. For years afterward, they would still bring up what I had said, as if it were just something funny I had said as a child. When I was in my first years of middle school, my grandfather died. I didn't shed a single tear. My think was very simply back then. If you didn't like me, why should I like you? My grandmother's third daughter later married and moved to Anhui, a province in China. She was my third aunt. My third aunt had 3 girls. Her third daughter was born in our home. To avoid China's family planning restriction at the time. Then one day, I noticed this baby was gone. I asked my mother, "Where's the baby?" My mother told me she had been given away to a family that didn't have any children. A few years later, my third aunt became pregnant again. This time, she finally had a boy. To her, this son was more important than her own life. As for the girl who was given away, where she is now, I don't know. And finally, there was the youngest of the 4 golden flowers, my mother. My father had gambled for years. He didn't work. His reason was, "It's because you haven't given me a son. That's why I will become like this." My mother believed him. She believed that if she could just have a son, this man would change. He would finally become responsible, and our family would have a better life. So when I was little, my mother often asked me, "Would you like me to give you a little brother?" I said no. She asked me why. I said, "You don't even have time to take care of me. Why do you want a little child?" I was about 10 years old. At night, I would lie awake under the covers. I couldn't understand that these adults will think they already had a daughter and they were always unhappy with the daughter they had, but they still wanted a son so badly. I even started to feel afraid. I would hide under the covers, trembling with fear. I thought, if this boy is really born, will taking care of him become my responsibility too? Of course, my mother didn't listen to me. As far as I know, I could have had 3 younger sisters, but in the end, none of them were born. My mother kept waiting until she was 34. She became pregnant again. At the time, our family was already in debt. I remember that even when she was heavily pregnant, she still went out with my father to collect, and the sales dropped off money. They left earning and came from later. It was hard, but this time she finally got what she had been waiting for. A boy. My younger brother was born. Because he was born in violation of the family planning rules at the time, my parents had to borrow a later 20,000 yuan to pay the fine. But to them, it was all worth. Except my father didn't change. He kept gambling our debts. keep growing. I remember that every year, around Chinese New Year, people would come to our house asking for the money we owed them. We always kept the door shut. Whenever someone clicked or called out, I would hide in my room and stay completely quiet. 18 years later, and even today, my mother has never regretted it, because to her, now that she had a son, her life and our family were finally complete. Do you remember my eldest aunt, the one whose husband married into her family? Because they had no son, she had one daughter, my older cousin. Later, my cousin grew up. She also married a man. Then, she had another child, a little girl. When her second daughter was born, the whole family was disappointed. My mother and my aunt said, "You need to have a little one with a son. This family will finally complete." My cousin believed this too. As far as I know, just last year, she became pregnant again, and with a girl. This girl wasn't born either. Eventually, I get married too. I don't have a child, and I don't plan to have any. Sometimes I still think about last night when I was 10 years old, that little girl, hiding under the covers, trembling with fear. I couldn't understand why these adults had to have a son. More than 20 years have passed. I still don't think I've ever really understood why, but this time I don't need to ask anyone anymore.